Hello, I'm Seth, the topless editor-in-chief of Forbidden Origins Comics, and I recently downloaded The Last of Us Part 2 so I can make a video talking about liberal Zionism and The Last of Us, which is funny that Jack Saint is now making a series of that, so maybe I won't have to make the video, which would be great because I don't really want to play through The Last of Us Part 2 again. I really don't like that game. It's so long. Anyway, I've also been playing Death Stranding 2, and that game made me remember that most video game cinematography fucking sucks. Why bring up The Last of Us Part 2? It's because a lot of the cinematography in The Last of Us Part 2 is really boring. It's a lot of shot, reverse shot, or very utilitarian, very like, I am taking a picture of the thing we need in the shot, and that's it. There's no intent beyond that. But when you're playing Death Stranding 2, the very opening of that game, where Sam is making breakfast with his son, there's a lot more intent in each and every one of those shots as compared to the entirety of The Last of Us Part 2. Now, I am picking on The Last of Us Part 2 because I really don't like that game. To be honest, even games I love also have terrible cinematography. Assassin's Creed was a big one. Like back in 2009, I think I was playing Assassin's Creed 2, and that's kind of when it clicked for me. Like, oh, everything's kind of just shot, reverse shot, weird close-ups, weird shot composition, where it just feels like you put everybody in a room and then they had them say their lines just because you needed the information out there. God of War doesn't really have good cinematography. Like, it hides behind that, like, everything's one shot trick behind the camera. So there is intent there, and I feel like it kind of weakens the storytelling. They do play with it a bit more in God of War Ragnarok, where the camera basically goes to another person, goes like, okay, you're following this person now. I think is better, but it loses a lot just not being able to cut. And I do want to make it clear, a big part of the reason why cinematography can sometimes be weaker in video games is because there's a lot more video game than there is even TV shows, like long-running TV shows. So that is quite a lot to try to put your own spin on, because, well, let's take Yakuza, for instance. Yakuza is a game that I think has very good cinematography, especially during its like pre-rendered cutscenes. I think they're less pre-rendered now, but they definitely were pre-rendered at the time. There's a lot of intense like shot composition. There's a lot of close-ups that are meaningful, actually, instead of like trying to convey basic information. There's a lot of like interesting, like creative camera work in Yakuza. But then you also have parts where it's just two characters standing still talking to each other because they don't have millions of dollars to spend. So I get that. But the problem is, like, even big budget franchises like the AA's, the AAA's, the quadruple A's, they have poor shot composition. Their cinematography kind of fucking sucks. Again, I point to Assassin's Creed. They have all the money in the world. Even their like high quality cutscenes, shot, reverse shot, two characters talking to each other. Not a lot of creativity, not a lot of intent behind their shots. There definitely appears to be like an East and West divide as well for some reason. Especially anything that comes out of French Canada tends to look like trash a little bit. That's probably because they're doing 15 Assassin's Creed games at once, so they don't really have time. Expedition 33 proved that there can be good cinematography, but that game's mostly not mired, I would say, but it's kind of brought down a bit by its lower budget and smaller team. So the cutscenes, that very high-end cutscenes they have, do have good cinematography, particularly in Mael's ending. I think the cinematography there is pretty good at conveying all the sad shit in it. But for the most part, it seems like Japan's kind of killing it with cinematography. Of course, you have the high budget games like Death Stranding and the more recent Yakuzas, which have had their budgets increased, mostly due to how they've exploded in popularity. But also games like Devil May Cry and Bayonetta, games you wouldn't think would have good cinematography, have like a lot of stylistic choices being made in their cutscenes, a lot of interesting camera work with a lot of intent behind it, something you don't really see in games like Assassin's Creed or Baldur's Gate, which is a completely different thing. A very small team, you know, shot, reverse shot, everything shot, reverse shot. in part probably because that's how the engine works. But even fighting games, it shouldn't have good cinematography at all, but Arxis is doing their fucking best. Like, you don't think about those games having good cinematography, but look at NA Super, look at like Street Fighter's Supers. Oh my god, look at CyberConnect 2. Look at what they can do with Naruto. Look at what they did with Ashura's Wrath. Like, Japan is fucking killing it with the cinematography, but meanwhile, we're heaping praise upon praise on like people like Neil Druckmann for directing student film. That was mean. That was mean even for me, honestly. Yeah, he's better than a student filmmaker. I'm sorry. And I get that like Japanese games can be a bit weird. A lot of people are probably more driven towards Western studios, like a Sucker Punch, like a Naughty Dog, like a Sony Santa Monica. But, you know, keep an open mind, because the Japanese games are blowing the fucking American ones out of the water in terms of like how they look. I'm sorry, they just are. I don't know. I'm not even like I'm a huge Kojima mark for sure. And I guess a huge Yakuza mark. And I guess a huge Devil May Cry mark, and Bayonetta, and fighting games. Okay, so I'm heavily biased. I don't know, I just kind of wanted to vent my frustration at Western developed games, especially like The Last of Us, compared to more interesting games like Death Stranding. Anyway, it's time to shout out another indie comic creator. This week's book is Spillblood, Downpour. 36 pages of blood-splattered horror from the creative duo of Jonathan Hedrick, Can I Scream fame, and Stefano Corticelli from Don't Spit in the Wind. Rejected by heaven and exiled from hell, a doomed priest walks the borderline between living and dead. He listens to those who cry to their deity for forgiveness. Then at night, he will spill blood. We'll have the links to their YouTube channel as well as their Kickstarter below, so you can give them some support. Anyway, I'm editor-in-chief of Forbidden Origins Comics, Seth, and have fun, subscribe, all that.